And welcome to Sports on Tap. I'm Rob Troutman. We have Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy is on assignment right now. We're live at Z's Cream and Bean in Hinckley, Ohio for our Ohio high school football coverage presented by RRT Productions. Bing! So thank you for joining us here. And, guys, Week 6 is over. And what a week it was. A lot of high scoring again. Some great player performances. And overall, you look at Week 6, and what'd you guys think of your conferences, or if you looked outside of your conference, some of the teams or player performances?
Well, I got to say, it's unbelievable that tonight's Week 7. I mean, this season has gone by very, very quickly. It's hard to believe that we went from August to talking about 2-a-days and whatnot to this point in the season already, and where we can actually talk about the offensive performances and some of the defensive performances that we've seen lately. I looked at my conference. There really wasn't a whole lot of surprises my way. Things kind of shook out the way I expected it to, with the exception of the spotlight game. But we'll talk about that later. So, I didn't get too much of a chance to look outside the conference, outside of my conference, outside of the game that I was somewhat directly involved in.
Yeah,
which was pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie.
And made Fox Sports Game of the Week as well.
Really? I did not know that.
So that's actually where, that's where I caught the game. But
they know good football when they see it, when you want to know.
That's right. That's right, Ed. Josh, how about the Greater Cleveland Conference?
Well, it's gone pretty much how I expected to go. We're getting into the dogfight point of the season, and Ed was kind of spoiling a little bit the game that he was talking about. Yeah, he was talking about the Brunswick Blue Devils coming back from seemingly out of the depths of the GCC. Now they're right back in this thing with a big win. So, while we're talking about it, let me just go into it. Let me recap. I don't want to talk too much about that game because that was actually
Greater Cleveland Conference.
That was actually my spotlight game. So first, I'll start off with Menor. They were at Solon, and Solon with a very, very impressive 42-35 victory over Menor. Both teams now 4-2 on the year. Solon was down 14-0 early in this game. Johnny Mooney, though, did lead the Comets back. 3 touchdown passes, 1 rushing TD, and running back Devin Brown did have the game-winning touchdown run. So a very impressive win by the Solon Comets. Menor with another tough loss. That's their second on the season. But even so, still a hard-fought battle. Shaker Heights dropped their third straight with a 30-0 loss when they traveled to Elyria. Elyria is now 4-2 in the overall, 1-2 in the GCC. Elyria running back Chris Atkinson had 153 yards, 2 touchdowns on 14 carries. He is an MVP candidate of mine. And Elyria nearly had 300 yards rushing in the game in the first half.
Oh, wow.
So this game was pretty much over.
Not messing around.
Over early. And again, Shaker, 3 straight losses, and that's 3 straight conference losses after starting 3-0 on the season. Euclid kind of sent a message as they defeated Strongsville 33-7. Euclid player Javon Avery had TD runs of 72 and 55 yards. Strongsville's Zach
Khan
was limited to 30. He had a 32-yard TD run. And Euclid defensive back / wide receiver Keon Mitchell had 2 interceptions and 1 TD reception. He did, however, have a pick 6 and a punt return called back. Pick 6 and punt return touchdown that were both called back due to penalties.
Wow.
He is also an MVP candidate for me, just because of the great all-around effort that he put up.
I'll say.
In his a really kind of a crucial victory as Euclid went to improve to 4-2, 2-1 in the GCC. Now, my spotlight game was the Brunswick Blue Devils at the Medina battling Bees. Brunswick came in and just clearly sent a message. Coming off of their good victory against Elyria, came in, went to Medina, and just pretty much manhandled them with a 35-7 victory. Medina now drops to 3-3, 1-2 in the GCC. You got to get up to the Brunswick running game. Jacob Martin, 20 carries, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns. Brunswick fullbacks Alex Gillespie, 16 carries, 115
Wow.
115 yards. Now, Brunswick was pretty efficient on the offensive end. They had TD drives of 5, 7, 9, 15, and 17 plays.
A lot of odd numbers there.
A lot
Wow.
of odd numbers, and as we saw, they had long, sustained drives that really took Medina out of their ball game. Just to give you an idea how bad Medina is struggling right now, Medina has allowed in the last 2 games alone 77 points and has given up over 1,000 yards of total offense in just 2 games. Got to give credit to the Brunswick defense this game. They held running back Jimmy Dodd 9 carries, 33 yards. So a valiant effort by Luke Beal. Really got his team ready to play. And Ed, I'll kind of turn to you at first count information. Was there anything different about this Brunswick team that it came to Medina, or was it just a matter of the old familiar face playing Medina, and you've had success with them recently? So how was it with that team?
Well, I mean, the players were very amped for this game. Obviously, Medina is a county rival, and they're a team that you always want to beat. Because we're relatively close. You're going to see these kids. Not only just in the not just hanging around town, but in the future and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But Medina got a little cocky, if you will, a little confident. Maybe a little bit before the game, and the Blue Devils definitely took that a little bit personally, and they made a personal mission to come out and kind of show them who the Kings of Medina County are, at least when it comes to those 2 teams. All right, I shouldn't say Kings of Medina County because I think that goes to somebody else, but
at least in the GCC.
Correct. It was. I think we're starting to see, and this is something that I've talked about. We're starting to see this offense kind of form into what it's supposed to be.
You're right.
Like you said, we have sustained drives, 5 plays, 7 plays, 9 plays, 15 plays, a 17-yard drive that ends up in a touchdown that takes 5-6 minutes off the clock, keeps the defense on the field, keeps Medina's offense and Jimmy Dahl off the field. That's always a good thing to have, and I think that's exactly what the doctor ordered when Coach Beal put this system into place. We knew there's gonna be some growing pains, and it's still obviously not perfect, but I think the players are starting to realize what potential they have when they follow the system, and things run the way they're supposed to run.
Well, and when you have your first taste of victory with a young team, I said this was my spotlight game because I wanted to see how the young Brunswick team will come out after their first victory of the season. And from what Ed was saying, Medina, even though they came off a very bad loss, came into the game a little confident, maybe too confident, and then Brunswick came in and just took care of business. And each of these games for them is a stepping point, is a growth point for them. And, they're right in this thing. I mean, they're 2-1 in the conference, so they are not out of it by any stretch.
Well, I think their confidence is starting to rise now that they see when they do execute this offense like they've been doing, they can put up some points. And when you get that confidence, obviously you're starting to see it. I mean, both games, they scored 26 points and 35 points in the last few games when, they started off only scoring 7, 9, 16, and 7 points. So they're still trying to figure out the offense early on. And now, they've put up some points. They're starting to get the confidence. The defense looks like it's a little better, only giving up 14 and 7 points in the last few games. So good job by Luke Beal and Brunswick's players to buy into the system and give it a chance. And now we'll see what happens as they go into next week.
Yeah,
another
and
good game.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later, but this is an important stretch for Brunswick looking at their schedule. I mean, now they have a winnable game against Shaker Heights coming up. They can't overlook that Shaker Heights team though, and they're going to build some momentum going into the final 3 games of their schedule. That's going to be games at Euclid, at Mentor, and then they finish up at home against Strongsville. So that's not going to be easy, but if you can build some momentum and really get some victories, you never know where it could take you.
And look at the teams they actually lost to. I mean, a 4-2 Highland team, a 4-2 Austin Fitch team, a 5-1 Brecksville team, a 4-2 Solon team. I mean, those are all good teams, and even the teams they beaten are 4-2, 3-3, and the rest of the schedule 4-2 teams. I mean, right now, that's why this conference, how many times do we have to say it, is really tough because every team is above 500 and pretty impressive.
Absolutely, it's a meat grinder, and it's one of the few Division Ones. It's one of the few Division One, exclusively Division One conferences out there. I mean, there's only Division One, Region One in this conference. So you take care of business non-conference, and if you win a couple of these games in conference, I mean, look at what's going on between Euclid, Mentor, and Solon. They all beat each other. They're all 1-1 against each other. So that just goes to show, kind of how tight this specific this conference is.
Does that surprise you that Mentor lost again to a Solon team? I mean, Euclid gave Mentor a pretty good battle, and now Solon actually beats Mentor. I was a little surprised by that. I don't know if you were, covering the GCC, if you thought Mentor would run away with it, or if you thought it was up in the air.
No, I wasn't surprised because it's always seemed from past history, Solon's always played Mentor tough and vice versa. That's a I guess for a GCC standard, that's kind of a rivalry in of itself because notoriously Solon and Mentor have been some of the top programs around. But Mentor is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type team. I mean, they come out, have a big win against Ignatius, but then just get demolished by St. Xavier. And then if you're looking, they come and they have a tough game against Euclid, and then they have a loss here against Solon. So I think Mentor's still trying to find their identity, and they're going to need to get it towards the end of the season here. But Solon, you can't overlook them, and they are a very good team. We just got done talking about Brunswick, and Solon came out and put a whooping on Brunswick, 44-7. So
they sure did.
And this is what you're going to get with the GCC. You can't take any game lightly because at any one moment a team can beat you. This is somewhat the GCC. I don't want to sound like I'm exaggerating or overblowing it, but like Ed said, this is the only Division I, Region I conference out there. This is like the SEC of Northeast Ohio high school football. At any given moment, any one of these teams can win. So, good stuff.
All right, well, we'll head to the Southwestern Conference, which, there might have been one surprise in some good defensive performances. We'll start off in Avon, where Avon was ranked number 11 in the Cleveland.com's top 25, and they jumped out to a 21-0 first-quarter lead, and they didn't look back as quarterback Jake Sopko threw for 4 touchdown passes in that game, and they ended up winning 42-7. Now, Lakewood, they scored in the second quarter on senior Michael Goolsby's 10-yard touchdown run, and that's the only score for Lakewood as they lose at Avon 42-7. Lakewood drops to 0-6. Avon now 5-1 on the year. Amherst, they traveled to Avon Lake, and Avon Lake started out with a Ryan Sturgeon 36-yard field goal to put – or actually Amherst started off with a 36-yard field goal, got them on the board as they trailed 7-3. Then Amherst came back. Austin Salinas with a 35-yard pick six to take the lead in the third quarter. In the third quarter, it was 9-7 Amherst. And then Avon Lake went on a 19-0 run from the third quarter onto the fourth. Avon Lake scored by Holden Ohm and Cole Schmidt in the fourth quarter to help lead Avon Lake to a 26-9 win. Avon Lake Sam Klimkowski also scored 2 runs on the ground to help Avon Lake. Avon Lake wins 26-9. Amherst now 0-6 on the year. Avon Lake improves to 3-3. 0-6 or 0-5 Westlake. They haven't won yet. They traveled to Midview, and this was a tough contest for them as Midview senior Logan Boland was making his first varsity start at quarterback. And this was his day all around, completing 11 of 14 passes for 217 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he carried the ball 9 times for 54 yards and a touchdown. And then on defense, he had 8 tackles and a return and interception, 32 yards for another score. And, I didn't mention, he actually was Midview's homecoming king. So congratulations
how you celebrate right there
to Logan Bowen. He also is going to be an MVP candidate for me. The Middies jumped out to a 20-0 lead early in the second quarter on a 35-yard pass from Boland to Damian Mahone. And Westlake, though, did have some bright spots, rushing for 231 yards on the day, 131 yards by Jaquan Hardy. Midview also had some good performances by Dimitri Redwood, who caught 3 passes for 108 yards and a touchdown, while Mahone added 3 receptions for 68 yards and 2 scores. It was Midview winning big, 61-20 over Westlake, and Westlake drops to 0-6. Midview now 6-0 on the year. And this was a really good game. Berea Mid-Park traveled to Olmsted Falls, and Olmsted Falls actually lost their star running back, Spencer Linville, to a shoulder injury in the first half, only to see senior running back Noel Caraballo step in and rush for 225 yards on 23 carries to lead the Bulldogs' rushing attack. They gained 422 yards on the day. The teams both combined for 896 yards of total offense. 744 of those yards were on the ground. Berea Mid-Park, though, marched down the field to score touchdowns on 3 of its first 4 possessions. Olmsted Falls did not attempt to pass, though, in the second half, rushing 31 times and establishing solid drives, getting 12 first downs. And after Castrogano's 22-yard field goal for Olmsted Falls with a little over a minute that left, or gave Olmsted Falls a 30-27 lead in the fourth quarter, the Titans got the ball. They moved down the field to the Bulldogs' 26-yard line without a timeout. Berea Mid-Park, Connor Kale attempted a 43-yard field goal with 3 seconds left that would have tied the game, but it sailed wide right as time expired. It was Olmsted Falls beating Berea Mid-Park 30-27, and a big win for Olmsted Falls as they improved to 5-1. Berea Mid-Park to 4-2 on the year. And, you know, that was a little bit of a surprise for me because I thought Berea Mid-Park all around is a very tough team to beat, but Olmsted Falls, even without Spencer Linville, pulls out a win. And for Berea Mid-Park, Sean Epps led the Titans with 146 yards rushing. And for Olmsted Falls, and an MVP candidate, Noel Caraballo, with 225 yards on 23 carries. So a great game for Olmsted Falls as they move on and win. Now, my spotlight game was North Ridgeville at Olmsted Falls. And, you know, this was a pretty fun game to watch as me and Sean went to this game.
Sean and I,
me and Sean, you know, whatever worked. But we got there as the game started, and North Ridgeville had the ball first. And on the first play from scrimmage, North Ridgeville, Demario McCall showed his quickness, starting on the first drive of the game with a 67-yard touchdown run to jump on the board first. They missed the extra point. It was 6-0 to start the game. But then North Olmsted answered back as Christian Ammons for North Olmsted hit Ryan Coleman with a 35-yard touchdown pass. The extra point was good. It was North Olmsted 7-6. Then back and forth we go. Demario McCall struck again from 21 yards out. His second rushing touchdown of the game. North Ridgeville led 13-7. And after that, in the second quarter, Demario McCall went out of the game with an injury.
Oh, boy.
But it was a shoulder injury, and he did not return the rest of the game. But, again, North Ridgeville struck with an Erie Davila 31-yard field goal for the Rangers. North Olmsted led 16-7. And then it went a little bit back and forth. Jason Grammatico stepped in for Demario McCall with a 1-yard touchdown run. Then North Olmsted answered with a Mario DeJoy 16-yard touchdown run. And Colin Solinger, the quarterback, threw a 4-yard touchdown pass to Jack Lesniak right before half. It was 30-14 at half. North Ridgeville led. And Colin Solinger, right out at halftime, came back and continued to shine, even without McCall, in the third quarter with a 27-yard pass to Brian DeFlorentis for a touchdown, and Davila had the kick extra. It was North Ridgeville 37-14 in the third quarter. North Olmsted would answer as quarterback Christian Ammons connected with Josh Huffstetler for a 27-yard touchdown. North Ridgeville at this point led 37-21 in the third quarter, and North Ridgeville would score one more time, and that would do it as North Ridgeville wins big, 44-21. They now improve to 5-1 on the year. North Olmsted drops to 3-3. And some stats in the game, Demario McCall, even though he only rushed into the second quarter, had 131 yards and a pair of touchdowns before leaving the game, and they're calling it a bone bruise in his shoulder. And he is quite questionable, but hopefully he will return as they have a big game against Avon coming up. For North Olmsted's quarterback Christian Ammons, he threw for 246 yards and a pair of touchdowns. And Ryan Coleman, his favorite target, followed up a great Week 5 performance with 6 catches for 134 yards and a touchdown. So some pretty good performances by both those schools. You know, I was interested to see if North Ridgeville would still perform at a high level without Demario McCall. And, you know, it seemed like they didn't skip a beat. Colin Solinger, the quarterback for North Ridgeville, did a great job continuing to lead that team. And let's see, Jason Grammaticos, I believe he was number 22 on North Ridgeville. If you see them play, what an impressive performance he was. I mean, he was a lot of fun to watch as he stepped in and made some big-time plays for North Ridgeville. And it was a very entertaining game. Give credit to North Ridgeville's defense, too. They really got to Ammons and Coleman and shut them out a little bit. They had one big play, and it was actually DeMario McCall on the coverage, and Coleman blew by him and made a nice catch. And that was really it for them on most of the night. So, fun game to watch.
Yeah, and you mentioned that North Ridgeville, really stepped it up when McCall went out of the game. You have to remember, too, the first couple of games, North Ridgeville was able to win without McCall playing. So it's good that they were able to kind of draw on that experience and, you'll kind of just pick up where they left off when McCall was not playing for him, because I believe McCall returned for the Berea Mid-Park game, which is right now North Ridgeville's only blemish on the year. And, and with this Southwest Conference, you have the cream of the crop who's very, very good, and then you have some teams that are not the best in the world right there. So,
yeah.
North Ridgeville's got a good – they right now they're sitting pretty. They're third. They're hosting a playoff game right now, and if they can maintain that momentum, you might have a playoff team coming to North Ridgeville for that first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and Midview stepped up, even with Dustin Crum giving him another week off. Logan Bowen has stepped in and done a nice job coming in at quarterback and leading that team.
Yeah, I mean, a team like Midview, and you're looking into this game too. I mean, you're playing Westlake. Westlake not doing as well as they have in past years. So you figure this was an opportunity for Dustin Crum to maybe take the week off. Maybe get the backup a little bit of get a little bit of play and see how he does. And with his first start, obviously he played very well. And that the offense is in good hands when Crum can't get there. And looking ahead, you don't want to think of Westlake as a trap game, but you have to think that knowing that they were playing an opponent like Westlake played a little bit into being able to rest Crum, for a big matchup against Olmsted Falls next week.
Yeah,
or tomorrow for that matter.
Yeah, and and if you look at Berea, Mid-Park started off really good, 4-0, has lost 2 straight, but they lost to really 2 good real opponents, Midview and Olmsted Falls, and they lost some tough games. So, I'm not going to count them out yet. They still have some very winnable games. The remaining schedules is very favorable, if I could talk. Looking ahead, not to say that the next games against Avon Lake and North Olmsted aren't big. Both teams right now are 3-3, but looking at week 9 there, you have Avon, who's a really good team. That's going to be an important matchup for them if Berea Mid-Park can snatch a couple victories until then. So it's getting down to the nitty-gritty now. It's every game counts, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, I think you're going to see some also 5-1 teams maybe go down since they're going to be playing each other next week. And some of the teams that still haven't won a game are going to be playing each other. So hopefully get off the schneid. But now let's head over to Dick as he continues on with the Suburban League.
I'm going to help out our on assignment buddy, Duffinator, Sean Duffy.
Duffinator, wow.
Yeah, the American Division.
Help him out. Suburban League American Division. We're going to start with Barberton at Rudy Sharkey Stadium. Barberton has no problem with Akron North, 42-0.
Wow.
Barberton with their second shutout of the season defensively. Our old buddy Brandon McCall back at it again, 19 carries, 111 yards, and 3 touchdowns. You have to think he didn't play too far into this game once they got a pretty good lead. Rest him up and get him ready for future games. Boy, I tell you what, there were 3 shutouts in this division, by the way. 3 shutouts.
Copley's continuing its winning ways.
Copley's not messing around. They take out the Talmadge Blue Devils 42-0, much like Barberton took out North. Copley quarterback Austin Brenner, 9-10 passing, 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 129 yards rushing and another touchdown.
That's actually Copley's second straight shutout, 3rd of the season.
Look at that. Copley's on a major roll right now. Weston Bridges had 21 rushes for 143 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Copley finally was able to get over the hump against Talmadge. Talmadge had defeated Copley the last 5 years. So good on Copley for it being able to reverse the trend on that one. Kent Roosevelt shuts out Revere, the Rough Riders 21, the Revere Minutemen 0. Trevon Richardson, 271 yards rushing, which sets a new school record for Canton Roosevelt for amount of rushing yards in a single game.
Wow.
So that's a tremendous
Very
effort.
impressive.
Tremendous effort on Richardson's part there. And once again, defensively, you can't ask much more than pitching a shutout. And Copley, Barberton, and Canton Roosevelt, great job by your guys' defenses this week. I have to admit, I don't think I've ever seen the same within division play 3 shutouts.
Yeah,
in
that's
the same week.
And we talked about good defensive performances, so congratulations to those 3 teams.
Was this a good game?
Yes, it was.
Absolutely. Highland quarterback Tyler Zielinski had a breakout game. He had 31 carries with 194 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Passing-wise, he went 6 for 11 with 141 yards and 2 more touchdowns. Ooh. 5 total touchdowns for Tyler Zielinski, 3 through the air, 2 on the ground. He had over 330 yards total offense from scrimmage, and there's nothing more you can say about the effort there. As he helped Highland get out to an early 14-0 lead. Aurora comes back, cuts the lead to 17-14.5 as quarterback Nolan Saka took advantage of good field position twice with a rushing touchdown and a touchdown pass to Gavin Blunt. Saka ended up finishing the game 14-21 for 170 yards and 3 touchdowns. Gavin Blunt, 3 receptions, 78 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
Model of efficiency right there.
That's beautiful.
So Highland respond back. Zielinski marches the Hornets and finds Castellanos over the middle to make it a 24-14 score. Sacco, he had a great night, but he made one of his very mistakes in the night and overthrew a receiver on 4th down from the Highland 27. Zielinski comes back with a 7-yard touchdown run, making the score 31-14 with 5 minutes and 23 seconds left in the game. Highland's defense holding tough. They ended up holding Aurora to 198 yards in total offense with just 6 minutes left. And they only gave up 3 runs of more than 10 yards. I mean, against a high-octane offense like Aurora, that's a very good feat. Very good feat there. Highland never trailed. It was a very stout defensive effort, stifling the high-powered Aurora offense. And this is a game that Highland had to had. Sean talked about this last week. Aurora came in on a roll, and Highland, very good season up to this point. Coach Mike Gibbons. Has Highland playing at Highland playing at a high level, really? Has the Hornets playing at a high level, and this is one they needed to get to help them in the playoff standings, and they got it. And I know Duffy talked about Highland's schedule coming up. They have another tough one in Copley coming up here soon, and it's going to be a major test for Highland again. They passed one test. Let's see what they can do going forward here. So it's a big game for Highland and a huge win.
I think, Sean hit it out of the park with his spotlight game. I think that was a great game, and that just shows you on any given day. Aurora comes in now; they're 5-1 now with the lone loss to Highland, and it's up and down. You just never know on any given day, but Highland's one of those teams. If they can win out, they're going to get some major points by that win, and looking at their schedule ahead, which is going to be interesting, there's some really good games for Highland coming up. So a huge win, though. Like you said, you look at, some of their losses. I mean, and Ashland's a 5-1 team, and Green is 3-3 on the year. They only lost by 4, so very easily could have won that game, too. But, still Highland continues to roll and got a big win.
Absolutely, and we'll transition over into the National Division. Is the conference, the division that I cover. So we have Stowe Munroe Falls continuing their winning ways, defeating the visiting Twinsburg Tigers 34-13. Week 5 MVP Jason Gowell picks up right where he left off. 13 rushes for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kicker Austin Burnham got on the phone. He tacked down field goals of 32 and 23 yards.
MVP candidate, Ed?
He might be. I prefer to have 3 field goals in a game
gotcha.
to make that, or 2 of more than 40 yards apiece.
There you go.
So I got standards here, right? Got standards here. Cameron McLean picked up a couple of touchdown runs for Twinsburg in the 4th quarter. Not enough, though. Stowe moves to 6-0 overall, 3-0 in division, while Twinsburg drops to 0-6 overall and 0-3 in the division.
Ouch.
Wadsworth shutting out the North Royalton Bears at Serpentini Field in North Royalton. Tough sledding for both teams, but Wadsworth got a 93-yard touchdown run early from from running back Alex Jones. That ended up being enough. Jones ended up with just over 100 yards on 6 carries. All-Ohio running back Dan Weinerman had just 65 yards on 25 carries. So we could see how tough it was for Wadsworth to be able to move the ball on the Bear defense. North Royalton quarterback Nick Coberly went 9 of 16 passing for 133 yards. He also had 9 carries for 30 yards. North Royalton actually had the ball in Wadsworth territory 4 times, but they were unable to come away with any points. The closest they got to the end zone was to the 8-yard line of Wadsworth, and unfortunately they turned it over on downs. So I mean, quite the defensive battle here between these two teams. Wadsworth moves up to 2-4 overall, 2-1 in the division. North Royalton falls to 2-4 overall and 1-2 in the division. Moving on to Hudson and Cuyahoga Falls. And the Explorers had little resistance from the visiting Cuyahoga Falls Black Tigers, notching a 45-0 shutout.
Wow.
So I guess we had 2 shutouts here, too. So how about that? Huh.
Good.
How about that?
It's good,
How about
good to
that?
see some defense every once in a while.
You know it.
Even though we love offense.
I play defense. I mean, in high school, so I always
Me too.
enjoy. You know, we enjoy seeing a low-scoring game every once in a while.
It was fun hitting those weak wide receivers.
You never hit me. That's
Rob,
why.
Rob looks at Josh.
He never
Everybody,
hit me.
just so you can get
Yeah, I forgot people listening.
get a picture of that. Well, the Explorers defense came to play. They held the Black Tigers to only 62 total yards for the game.
Whoa.
And they scored a touchdown of their own with a 38-yard fumble recovery from Dawson Worvey. Hudson's had touchdowns from 5 different players, with 3 of them coming from the arm of quarterback Jackson Parker. He finished the game 9 of 13 passing for 125 yards and 3 touchdowns. Hudson moves to 5-1 overall, 3-0 in division, while Cuyahoga Falls unfortunately remains winless, 0-6 overall, 0-3 in the division. Moving on to the Spotlight game. This was another high-octane affair that included the Macedonia-Nordonia Knights. Unlike last week, though, the Knights came out on top, handing host Brecksville Broadview Heights their first loss of the season
Wow.
in a 49-34 shootout.
Whoa.
So these teams were about even for the first 3 quarters before the Knights were able to pull away from the Bees in the 4th quarter. Brecksville opens up the scoring with a 14-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Luke Sternad to wide receiver Joey Monagal. Anthony Perrine then started his big night, answering with a 3-yard touchdown to tie it up at 7. Unfortunately for the Bees, Sternad suffered a knee injury in the 2nd quarter and was unable to finish the game. He had some pretty solid stats, though, when he started. He was 6 of 7 for 109 yards and a touchdown before unfortunately he went down. But undaunted, backup quarterback Dan Sharilla took over and hit Tyler Tupa for a 17-yard touchdown pass to answer a 1-yard touchdown run by Perrine. Running back Ty Evans for Nordonia put the Knights up 21-13 with a 1-yard touchdown run. But the Bees came right back before the half with a Josh Underwood 10-yard touchdown run to make it 21-19 at the half. Unfortunately, the Bees did miss 2 extra points, which accounted for the difference. Nordonia's offensive line just kept churning up the Bees' defense as the Knights were able to put up another 28 points in the second half, all of which coming from Anthony Perrine. He scored on runs of 16, 33, 25, and 8 yards in the second half. Joey Underwood, running back for the Bees, did his best to help keep up, scoring a touchdown run in both the 3rd and the 4th quarters. Unfortunately, the Bees were just unable to stop the run game as the Knights ran for a total of 389 yards as the Knights ran for 389 total yards. Individually, Anthony Perrine, 41 carries, 343 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
Wow.
Unreal game from Perrine. His running back mate, Ty Evans, had 8 carries for 29 yards. He had 1 touchdown, and he also had 4 catches for 84 yards. For the Bees, Dan Sharilla, in relief of Luke Sternad, was 7 of 18 passing for 85 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Joey Underwood, running back for the Bees, ran 15 times for 105 yards and 3 touchdowns. With the win, Nordonia improves to 3-3 overall, 1-2 in the division, while Brecksville drops to 5-1 overall and 2-1 in the division. Nordonia has played the top 3 teams in the division so far, and they have a pretty favorable schedule moving forward here. So this is something I talked about before. I'm looking for Nordonia to start making their move in this conference. They went through their grinder of a schedule here so far, so I'm looking forward to the Knights jumping up in the standings a little bit there. Real briefly, I'm going to brief you guys on our other 2 teams that we cover real quick, one of which you guys are going to go visit Massillon tomorrow.
Yes, we're making a trip down to Stark County.
Yes. Well, Massillon Washington unfortunately suffered a tough 7-6 loss at the hands of host Austintown Fitch. Both teams struggled to get it going offensively as the Tigers score actually came off a 60-yard punt return from Austin Jasinski in the 3rd quarter. Unfortunately, the extra point was missed, which accounted for the final score. The Tigers had 173 yards of total offense to 168 for Austintown. With the loss, Massillon drops to 2-4, and as you guys will go see, the Tigers take on Youngstown Ursuline tomorrow. Actually,
Massillon's homecoming, so it should be fun. We're looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
And Medina Buckeye just keeps it rolling. Maintains their defensive dominance, helping the Bucks defeat the Wellington Dukes 54-6.
Yeah, and a quick note: you mentioned the defense, Ed, for the Buckeye Bucks, but their offense is just as high-powered.
Yep.
You know, just looking at it this season, Buckeye has outscored their opponents in their 6 games, 265-55.
That's unbelievable.
That
is unreal.
6 games.
Unreal. They are playing at an extremely high level right now, and
yes, they are.
You know, the Bucks held the Dukes to just 48 yards of total offense.
Wow.
Trevor Tomey and Nathan Scott each scored twice. Buckeye 6-0. Wellington falls to 3-3, and I'm gonna call the plain dealer out. You guys better find some room for the Medina Buckeye Bucks somewhere in your top 25.
Yeah, they didn't even get any votes.
I'm getting kind of sick of seeing them being left off here. So I think you guys.
Ed just put the gauntlet down.
I think they need to get start noticing what's going on in one of the other areas of Medina County.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, Wellington is a 3-3 team that they just absolutely dominated. And, you know, really every game this year has been pretty dominant by Buckeye, so congratulations to them. They're 4th in the Division III Region 7. And Massillon, you know, their record falls at 2-4, now 14th in Division II Region 5. But, you know, still a lot of season left. They can still turn it around. So we're excited to head down to Massillon and watch a good game and you know, see John Hunick in action, front of the show, an offensive coordinator for Massillon. And, you know, it's going to be a fun game to watch. So we look forward to that. All right, well, right now it's going to be time for our conference MVPs, which is presented by Z's Cream and Bean. All right, and let's go. We'll go through the conferences. Josh, first with the Greater Cleveland Conference, your conference MVP, presented by Z's Cream and Bean.
Well, I gave a lot of look into Elyria running back Chris Atkinson, who had 153 yards, 2 touchdowns on 14 attempts. But I mentioned it earlier, you got to give some love. This week seems defense and special teams actually seems to be the kind of the way to go, and they finally stepped their games up this week. So I'm going to give it to Euclid at defensive back / wide receiver Keon Mitchell. He had 1 TD reception. He had 2 interceptions on defense. However, would have had 3 touchdowns in all 3 aspects of the game. He would have had a pick 6 return, interception return for a touchdown, and a punt return for a touchdown. However, both were called back due to penalties. But with that being said, though, Keon Mitchell helping Euclid with a dominating victory over Strongsville. So I'm definitely going to give it to him. So congratulations to Mr. Keon Mitchell.
All right, Keon Mitchell, congratulations. Very impressive performance there, and like a lot of these players. And now I'll give my Southwestern Conference Player MVP, presented by Z's Cream and Bean, and that's going to go to Logan Bolin of Midview. He stepped in his first varsity high school quarterback start. He went 11 of 14 for 217 yards, 3 touchdowns, carried the ball 9 times for 54 yards and a touchdown. On defense, he had 8 tackles and return an interception, 32 yards for another score. And not to mention, he was Midview's homecoming king on this day. So congratulations to Logan Bolin.
Good to be the king.
Exactly, of Midview.
Do we have to call him King Bolin?
You know what? We might. I mean, after that performance, that was very impressive, and his leadership stepped in. They got a win, and it's quarterback and / wide receiver Logan Bolin of Midview is my Southwestern Conference Player MVP. Now over to Ed Dick with the Suburban League MVP.
Yeah, we're going to start with the American division here. We had 6 worthy candidates. Quickly, Barberton's Brandon McCall, 19 carries, 111 yards, 3 touchdowns. Copley quarterback Austin Brenner, 9 of 10 passing, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, 129 yards on the ground with 1 rushing touchdown. Copley running back Weston Bridges, 21 rushes for 143 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kent Roosevelt's Trevin Richardson, 271 rushing yards, with which ended up being a school record. Aurora quarterback Nolan Saka, 14 for 21 passing, 170 yards and 3 touchdowns. But the MVP goes to the winner of the spotlight game, Highland quarterback Tyler Zielinski, 6 for 11 passing, 141 yards and 2 touchdowns. 31 carries for 194 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Nice.
Zielinski with over 330 yards in total offense, 5 total touchdowns. There was no doubt about this one. Tyler Zielinski doing some serious work against the Warwick Greenmen, helping Highland to their big victory in the spotlight game.
Yeah, great performances, and a lot of kids in your division had great performances. I mean, like most of our conferences too, a lot of other kids had just impressive yardage totals, touchdowns.
Absolutely,
a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, the fireworks that were in the American division were not as plentiful as they were in the National division. Going through my my MVP candidates, I really only had 2, and they both came from the spotlight game. Joey Underwood, running back for Brecksville, had 15 carries for 105 yards and 3 touchdowns. Very good game. But unfortunately for him, Anthony Prine was on the other side of the field, and he put in some serious work. 41 carries, 343 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
Wow.
Macedonian Nordonian Knight running back Anthony Prine is my Suburban League National Division MVP. No, there's no debate about that one this time around. Jason Gobble, you can never count him out. He always has a good game, but this was a major opponent that Nordonia beat, and I always like to I try to reward teams that performances in big games, and this was a spotlight game, and this is the game that Nordonia had to keep their season going, and they're setting themselves up well for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I watched that game, and just an impressive performance. I mean, he basically put Nordonia on his back. They didn't throw for a ton of yards, but they didn't have to. The offensive line did a great job running the football, and congratulations to him and Nordonia on a huge win at Brecksville. Right now, we're going to step away briefly. It'll say we're offline. We're going to come back, and when we come back, we're going to preview Week 7 of the Ohio High School football coverage here presented by RRT Productions, and also give you our spotlight games and go over rankings from Joe Itel, all coming up. It's the Ohio High School football coverage presented by RRT Productions. We're Sports on Tap.